What is a theory of change?
So it's a bit of a compass. Imagine you're traveling somewhere and you need, a compass to help you understand where you are and give you some direction. So this is what it is. It's a series of assumptions about how change happens. So it gives you some direction and a guide. It's not a prescriptive map for how to get there. So it's not a Google map. It's more of a compass that enables you to understand what's your general direction. How do I get there? What are the different ways to possibly get there? And it's a useful tool. It's something that we find to be quite important to have at the outset of starting a new strategy.
How did the Jacobs Foundation go about defining its theory of change?
And we asked ourselves 3 questions. What are we good at? What is the foundation good at? And how do we harness that? So that's our core competences. What does the world need? What is the challenge that we're solving for? And then finally, what's feasible with our resources and with the time frame that we have available to us? And staff were involved in answering these questions, our board of trustees, and also in consultation with our partners about what change do they want to see in the world. So it was a very inclusive, iterative process, and it continues to be because the theory of change continues to evolve. So Evidence Generator and Translator, this builds on the Foundation's 30-year-long history of funding research excellence. So essentially, it's bringing the most brilliant minds together to produce new research on child learning and development, and actually creating partnerships, multidisciplinary partnerships among these researchers to generate new insights. And the translation part is where you take those insights and actually put it into the hands of practitioners and policymakers who can use them to put them into practice and to implement policies and practices. So Partnerships Innovator is something that the Foundation has been working on for many years. And what that really means is creating multi-stakeholder coalitions, igniting those partnerships, being someone who can bring different worlds together that wouldn't otherwise come together. For example, researchers don't normally work with practitioners, and those 2 worlds are not something that they don't meet very often. So we look at ways of creating the incentives so that the research community and the practitioner community can come together more effectively. That's just one example of different stakeholders that are brought together towards meaningful collaboration, and that's what we're trying to do through our Partnership Innovator competence. Policy entrepreneur is something that we're learning about, as it is a very complex thing to do effectively, of how do you effectively influence policies at the country level and globally within the global education infrastructure. So what we mean by that is, how do we ignite kind of policy innovation within government? How do you support the use of knowledge and evidence so that policies are informed by what works? What do we know to work in child learning and development, so that that policy is actually based on that evidence? And we're supporting that process of integrating evidence into the policy making and making sure that policies then get implemented, which is the toughest part. And how do we actually do that effectively? This is something that we're working on as well. So our competence as a catalytic investor is really based on the notion that there is a need for innovative financial instruments, whether that's large-scale funds that bring in investment from others to signal that this is an area that requires large-scale investment. But also areas like EdTech. We're launching some major investments in that space to actually stimulate that sector to be more evidence-based and to tie financial incentives to impact and outcomes. And these are ways in which we're using our own financial instruments and leveraging them to bring other third-party players into the space. And that's one way of generating impact and really driving for our own strategy forward across the board.